This panel discussion and a session related to the value of open data and AWS technology to support innovation in the sustainability space. I'm going to take this opportunity to give you a quick overview of a program that we launched at Amazon last December, the Amazon Sustainability Data Initiative, and give you a quick overview of what we are offering and trying to accomplish with this program. So for a little bit of context, when we think of the world that we live in today, where we have more data than ever before, we have constellations of satellites collecting data and models providing more and more outputs in higher and higher resolution. This is not necessarily always translating, this amount of data is not necessarily translating into more meaningful, timely, and accurate data insights that support sustainability decisions. So at Amazon, we've been thinking, we deal a lot with data in all the processes and decisions that we make. And data is a crucial part of the way we think about solving problems. So we try to apply the same principles to this problem of global sustainability. Another problem, and for all of you that, and of us that have been working in the space of taking data and translating into information, one of the big struggles that we see frequently is that although there's many data sets spread everywhere, the effort to bring the data that you need into a collocated place with the computing resources, formatting it and putting it in a way analysis ready that you can actually do some generation of insights on top of it is extremely demanding, and it takes a lot of time and effort. So with this in mind, we thought at Amazon, how do we accomplish this process of removing the undifferentiated heavy lifting that AWS and Amazon in general are so great at? How can we apply these principles and help the broader community? And with that in mind, we launched this program called the Amazon Sustainability Data Initiative. What we're trying to do is really reduce the costs and remove the technical barriers that are preventing everyone around the world from having access to the data and the resources that are currently primarily allocated to high-performance computers and big data centers and big research organizations. So what exactly are we doing? So we believe that if we want to build a community of change for sustainability and we want to empower everyone around the world, or almost everyone around the world, to have the same data and resources and information they need to make decisions, we should tackle at least three main components. So we're looking at the data. We're trying to figure out how do we work with the community and with AWS customers working in this space to understand what are those foundational data sets that if we bring to the cloud and make available to the broader community for free, will really stimulate a lot of more work in the space of sustainability and more innovation. Oh, sorry, went back. The other one is analytical capabilities. It's great if we bring a lot of data, put it in the cloud, make it available to everybody, but the real value of leveraging Amazon technology and infrastructure, and in this case, AWS, is really the value. I don't know what's going in here. I'm probably stepping on something I shouldn't, is the value of having the data collocated with all these amazing services and capabilities that AWS has to offer. And then the other one is knowledge. So we really believe that if we don't create a community that works together to share the knowledge of what is relevant for sustainability, how do we solve problems, what data sets are meaningful in this space, then we have a much harder case to push forward and to move this space as fast as we need to. So just to give you an example of what we're doing so far, so we've been trying to enable and democratize access to those key data sets. We have currently quite extensive program or catalog of data. We host this data by working very closely with the AWS Public Datasets program that brings data to the cloud and basically subsidize the cost of storing and distributing the data. We currently have data that ranges very different domains in the space of sustainability, anything from weather observation to weather forecasts, climate projections, air quality, and many more. In terms of democratizing access to the analytical capabilities, we have invested heavily on working with the community to understand what are your pain points, what are your challenges in terms of analyzing data and turning it into insights. And we provide access to basically cloud grants. The promotional cloud credits program has been supporting this effort as well, and we're very excited to work with them. But the idea is that if you have an idea in the space of sustainability that you would like to test and prototype in the cloud, ideally using open data, we really want to support you and encourage you to take that path. So please do come and engage with us if that's the case. And then the third one, in terms of creating that knowledge and sharing the knowledge, we have created a community of practice. And what that means is that as we engage with the community to understand the specific needs of sustainability practices, we also create a lot of tutorials and write stories to demonstrate what is possible with open data and with cloud technology, hoping that if we share that knowledge, others will be excited and stimulated to also go and implement their own ideas and solutions. Okay, so very quickly, I'm just going to give you some overview of projects and groups that we've been working with around the globe. We work at very different scales and in very different domains. For instance, in this case, CalAdapt is a group it's a project and a community in the state of California. Specifically, we've been engaging directly with UC Berkeley. And they are building a platform to compile and distribute data and information relevant to understand the impacts of climate change. A very different focus and at a different scale, the city of Virginia Beach has been working on the project called StormSense that is leveraging a lot of the AWS technology to map flooding and predict inundation in the area and push that information to Alexa so that it can actually be shared with residents of the area. Another one, now at a completely different scale, and at the continental level of Africa, we've been working closely with the African Regional Data Cube. This is a project that the Global Partnership for, I'm going to have a gap. It's the UN Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data. Has been developing. This is a very sensitive sensor, so I'm going to keep it on the side. The focus here of this project is to take Earth observation and put it in the hands of communities and governments in Africa and giving them access to the insights they need to better steward their environmental resources and deal with other sustainability-related issues. So this has been a very exciting project to work with, and they have done tremendous amount of progress, and we're very excited to be supporting them. A few more, completely different program, a different scale. Also, we are working with a lot of startups and supporting them in this space as well. For instance, Urban Emissions is a for-profit group in India that is trying to manage and model air quality in different areas of India. And so they are leveraging some of the data, open data on AWS, as well as some credits to prototype some of their computing. And very quickly, another one, Blue Dot, one of my, it's a great project just because it has beautiful images, but also the relevance is really, is a great one. This project is being managed by a group called Synergize. It's actually a for-profit company, but they work in Slovenia, and they use some of the Earth observation data in the system on AWS through the public data sets program to create basically a monitoring system for water bodies at risk around the world. And finally, just to show you the diversity of projects that we are supporting, PinGeo, this is mostly is not only a project, it's more like, at this point, a community practice around the world that is trying to improve and create tools to facilitate the access and analysis of big data sets, in this case in the cloud, and very, very focused on climate action and climate sciences. So that is all for me at this point. I just want to leave a link here with more information about the Amazon Sustainability Data Initiative. We would love to have your stories up here in some other presentations. So if you have an interest in understanding how you might leverage open data and cloud computing to support some work in the space of sustainability, we are very interested in talking to you and see how we might be able to help. And right now, I am delighted to bring on stage two great speakers that we have with us today to join the conversation and try to help us understand how open data is playing a role in the private sector and at UN level to support sustainability-related practices and activities. So first, they have a very long bio, so I'm not going to read it all, but I would like to ask Heather Savory to come on stage. And just as a quick introduction, Heather Savory started a career in the high-tech industry, then worked for 4 years at UK Office for National Statistics as the Deputy National Statistician and Director General for Data Capabilities. And she is now the co-chair for the Global Working Group, for the UN Global Working Group on Big Data for Official Statistics. So thank you, Heather, for being here. And I would also like to invite Kara. Kara Hurst is one of our own, an Amazonian. She leads the worldwide sustainability at Amazon, covering many of the functions of sustainability, from renewable energy to transportation, sustainable transportation, and responsible sourcing, and many others that I'm sure she'll have the chance to tell us more about. And prior to joining Amazon, Kara was the CEO of the Sustainability Consortium, a multi-sector group across academia, the retail industry, and the public sector. And thank you both for being here.
Thank you for inviting us.
Okay, so before we start, I just wanted to keep in mind, if we do have time, we would love to give the opportunity to the audience to ask some questions, so keep those in your mind, and if we do run out of time, I would ask that you come at the end and talk to all of us if you do desire so. Okay, so I'm going to start by, I would like to ask Heather a little bit more about the work that she does. And as an introduction, and I assume most of you are familiar with it, but if not, in 2015, the 193 countries of the United Nations adopted the 2030 Global Agenda for Sustainable Development, which really meant that they had an agenda that outlined 17 sustainable goals, sustainable development goals, as the blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. And in this context, I would like to ask Heather, how is, in particular, your working group supporting the SDGs? And what is the main mission that you're trying to accomplish with that work group?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the overview of the services that you're offering, which we are using on the global platform already. So the global platform has been developed over the last couple of years, and there are really two main aspects to it. First of all, it's to take the friction out of providing data and compute and learning services to the United Nations Statistical Commission, so to all 193 countries who are trying to measure the SDGs. So to give an example on that, if you're a very small country, you will have a very small statistical office, and you literally would have probably a Dell computer that most of us here would have thrown away about 10 years ago. And all of a sudden, you're being asked by your government to measure and report on something over 200 separate indicators. Now, the great thing, and I think this is something for all of us in this room, is that we can collaborate. We can all work together to get the better use of data in the public interest. And so the idea of the global platform is that if you're a trusted partner, you can come into the platform and under the auspices of the United Nations, so that there is a provenance to the data, there is ethics there, we can guarantee that the data is being used in the public interest. You can collaborate. And we have countries already, we have 200 countries on the platform, from Mongolia to Indonesia to the Netherlands, who are actually running task teams to look at different types of data use and develop methods. So for example, Indonesia is developing tourism statistics from mobile phone data. Now when they've done that, they will share the method that they have developed on the platform for every other country to pick up. So really there are four pillars to this. There's trusted partners, trusted data, trusted methods, and trusted learning. But the big focus is on collaboration, and that's why I'm so pleased to be here, because I really want to push this message that we can and should all collaborate to really get the most out of the data that's available these days.
Great, thank you. So, Kara, we talked about the Amazon Sustainability Data Initiative, and I imagine a lot of people in the audience are wondering, why does Amazon care about this? Why are we supporting open data and access to technology to support sustainability?
Sure. Well, thanks for allowing us to share a little bit more about ASDI and our sustainability work at Amazon here today. one of the things that when we started thinking about sustainability at Amazon and all of the different ways in which we would look at our issues and integrate them into how our business operates, and then think about how we could both mitigate our own environmental impact, provide social value in the world, and then also use our technology for good. Getting into a conversation about with our colleagues at AWS and thinking about the tools that we have available and what they could bring to really insights across the sustainability field became really interesting really quickly. So there's a couple of things that I think came out very, very quickly as we started to iterate on this idea. One was just that, previous to Amazon, I ran small nonprofits, I ran a larger NGO, and I did many, many years of cross-sector collaboration. And I think the idea of how to access data in the cloud, what are the skills you need to understand big data sets, and not only that, but look at them in conjunction with each other and potentially derive insights from them was a bit intimidating. So one of the things I think we want to communicate with all of this is that there are no bad questions around this. We're using lots of terminology and lots of jargon, which might be unfamiliar to some of you if you're running a smaller organization, or you don't have a CTO, you don't have tech infrastructure, you don't know what this terminology means. So by publishing case studies, everything from NASA and NOAA, but down to StormSense and what cities are doing, African Data Cube, and trying to illuminate how people are using this information to gain insights about their local communities, about issues that are impacting how climate change might be affecting their natural environment, maybe how animal migration patterns are affecting their ability to grow crops. These are issues that on the ground people care greatly about and can be improved with the use of data. So at Amazon, we know most of the decisions that we take and that we look at throughout the company are data-based. We use anecdotes and we use data, but certainly data always a critical part of that conversation. And coming from the nonprofit and NGO world, I think it was very important as we started to evolve sustainability to also think about how do we engage externally at Amazon and provide these skills and provide this knowledge and this know-how through cloud computing credits, through case studies that you've been putting on the ASDI website around how people are using this, and really trying to democratize that conversation and open it up and say, ask us how you can use these tools to improve what you're doing. And then the benefit of that also, the more people that are in that conversation, the more we learn about issues like hydrological data and satellite data and water and migration and land use, and all of the things that are critical to us being able to tackle climate change on the planet today and to be able to tackle some of our most critical social issues. So we just saw multiple wins in the ways that we could use the tools available to us. We could learn a great deal about the communities that we care about, but hopefully invite many, many more people into that conversation as well.
Thank you. Heather, so in the space of making data available to the community, open data, this global data platform that UN is building, my understanding is that this platform is primarily designed to support the statistician community, the statisticians. How do you envision this going beyond that community and helping groups like Amazon and the broader community and the NGOs that are here with us today?
Thank you. Well, yes, the primary focus of the platform is under the UN Statistical Commission, but it will also be broadened out so that it can be accessed by other UN agencies. Now, the very good reason for this is the one that I was talking about earlier. It's about trust. So for all of us here, we're using multiple data sets, we're using big data, and in the world that we live in, we're all aware that the public are quite interested now in what we're doing with data, how we're using it. Now, the statistical community has always used public data, and it's always aggregated that data and published anonymized results. So we want to start this initiative building on the trust that there is in that community. But the global platform is not just about statisticians. What it's about is using data for the public good, the SDGs, economic and social indicators, which may not be statistics. So you can get now some very fast indicators. There's some work done at the Data Science Campus at the ONS in the UK, where we now publish monthly economic indicators based on shipping data which can give you a good idea of what's happening. If you're an island like the United Kingdom is, you can look at all the ships coming in and out of the ports, and you can make a good rough and ready estimate. So when we come back to the community, one of the key benefits of the global platform and the work we're doing with the UN is we have the provenance of that. But what we're also doing is really what this conference is doing, and that's why this conference I think is so great. We're trying to get the people who need to get insights from data working with the technology companies. And really the system needs to think holistically about the types of data we're using and how we can use it. Now, we can only use it effectively with tools and services from companies like Amazon, but the people who are going to do the analytics are the ones with the subject matter expertise. And so it's a completely new way of working. And for the global platform, although each of the data collaboratives will need to be led by a trusted partner, because that's how we ensure that we maintain the trusted ecosystem, other parties can join in that. So we're expecting, and we already have these teams, which bring together academics, researchers, consultants, the tech community, together with the traditional statistical and data analytics community, and more data scientists coming into play. So it's for everybody, but we have to organize it in a way where the work that we're doing, we can assure the public is in the public interest, and we're using data appropriately.
Great, thank you. We're going to do the ping pong. So Kara,
okay,
you're next. So although the SDGs were primarily targeting action by the UN global governments, there's a big push for the private sector to play a role in this space. And I'm curious, and I'm sure the audience is as well, in addition to ASDI, is Amazon leveraging its infrastructure and its technology and scale to support the sustainability space in other ways besides the ASDI?
Absolutely. So we've taken a perspective of looking across our operations, our fulfillment network, our buildings, our data centers, our retail business, our private label product, and thinking about where are the opportunities for us to play in the sustainability space that, again, both bring, I think, value to our customers, which for us, we're a customer-obsessed company, so that's first and foremost. And then where can we also contribute and be in partnership and collaboration to tackling some of these very critical issues that are represented by the 17 SDGs across areas around sustainable development and contribution to education and other things that don't necessarily fall into the sustainability remit. So we've done a number of things. One is that we've made it, one is that we've supported from the beginning climate science and made it very public that we support climate science and policies that would support climate change, and signed on to a number of initiatives. We filed an amicus brief with other companies. And we've continued to, in support of the Clean Power Plan, and we've continued to support climate science throughout. So I think that's important for us as a company also to take that position publicly. Yes. And then obviously we need to account for our own footprint. And so we thought we also had a role to play in renewable energy. And we have just launched our 66th renewable energy project. So we were a couple years ago the largest buyer of renewable energy from any corporate in the United States. We are the second largest in solar this year, and the #1 on our own corporate footprint of consumer of solar energy. So if you don't know about that, I share that because that's a really important thing when we think about the footprint we have. We had a goal to put 50 solar installations across our fulfillment network by 2020, and I'm super excited that our team delivered on that 18 months early. We just announced that we beat that goal, so we just put our 51st project onto a building, and we launched also something called Amazon Wind Farm Texas, which is our largest project to date, 253 megawatt wind farm in Scurry County, Texas. So we are going big into the renewables space in both utility scale, wind and solar, but also on our own footprint. And the reason that matters is because at our scale, we can do things that help to enable those technologies, but we also are part of collaborations like the Renewable Energy Buyers Forum, where there are smaller companies and other people who don't necessarily have the resources that we do to stand up a whole team to work on this, where we go in and we share our learnings and we talk about how we've done power purchase agreements and virtual power purchase agreements, and we're talking to utilities and using green tariffs. And so we really try to share all of that knowledge in that space about how we're working. Similar on our buildings, we've done a lot of energy efficiency, LED retrofits, building management systems to look at our energy use. We have begun to electrify our fleet, and we're putting in electric vehicles and collecting telematics data and thinking about how to share that back, routing optimization so that we can increase our use of EVs, and sharing that again more broadly. There's a group called the Sustainable Fuel Principles that we've signed on to. So one of what I'm trying to express in this theme, across actually both in our social responsibility space, we're doing the same in our, we manufacture a lot of private brand, and we're doing the same in that space, joining things like SEDEX and the Sustainable Apparel Coalition and the Responsible Business Alliance. We try to look at our own operations and think about where we are making changes and where we can drive things ahead. We are a company that loves to innovate, we love to scale, we love to test and pilot and then bring it to scale. And so as we do that big in the sustainability space, we want to share that in collaboration with multi-sector, multilateral groups. We want to provide data and insights, and we want to share the learnings that we have. This is not a competitive space. We like that we go big, and we like to share that, but it's a space really where we all have to do all of the above in order to tackle climate change. We have a limited amount of time with global warming, and we need to be doing all of that, and we need to be supporting organizations like probably many of yours, you who are here in the room, are doing on the ground. And so we're looking at how do we support all of these activities right now to go as fast and as hard as we can at the sustainability challenges we're facing.
Okay, thank you. So Heather, just to follow up on this previous question, how do you envision the global data platform supporting the private sector and in general NGOs and others in the community? Do you see a role, and are you already seeing some impact from the platform and what was created so far?
Yeah, so there's a huge amount of interest in the global platform because I think we all realize that we have a shortage of skills. And particularly if you're working in the not-for-profit sector or in an NGO, it is very, very difficult to compete with some of the big private sector companies, the big tech companies, in terms of the quality of people that we can actually attract. So one of the ways that we are going to make this community more holistic is that the methods and the learning materials on the platform will actually be available for everybody. And I think that's really important. And if you're sitting there and you, maybe, where I was 2 years ago, and you think, oh my God, this big data, I don't know what to do with it. I think I could probably use it in my not-for-profit, but where am I going to start? There will just be materials available there which will help you. Maybe if you have one data scientist working in a virtual collaboration can achieve as much as a small team of data scientists, because the scientists need to work together and learn from one another. So we are looking to support as wide a community as we can, but of course it is one step at a time. We have got a proof of concept available. It's being used at the moment by a number of collaboratives. We've got a lot of interest in it. We need to bring that to scale, which is what I'm going to be working on with a team out of the ONS. We're coming out into a charity organisation so that we can scale this up, we can get funding, we can build partnerships with Amazon and other technology companies. And as time goes on, I hope that you will see that there will be more and more materials which you can pick up, and more people who you can connect with, so that we can all get the most out of this data. Data is a very interesting commodity, and I do see it as a commodity because you can have a single data set, and geospatial data is a really good example. I mean, choosing that as one of your early data sets to provide is a really good move. because there's so much different information you can get from geospatial data. And data has different values to different people depending on the lens you analyze it through. So we really need to sort of scale this up. And in my view, there is no need for any competition here whatsoever, because we have a plethora of data, a huge number of problems to solve. And at the moment, we don't have enough people with the skills to get everything we can out of that data. So this is about collaborating and building capability and getting to a point where we really understand the world we live in a lot better. And by the world we live in, I mean climate change, I mean the SDGs, and I also mean our local communities and the specialist groups that some of you support. So we are looking to try and make this as collaborative and inclusive as we possibly can.
Can I jump on a point that Heather made, not to disrupt your questions? But
Of course, no, please.
You just said something very interesting. It's something that we think a lot about at Amazon, and I've thought a lot about in my career navigating through the public and private sector, which is we get a lot of people coming to our team at Amazon and thinking, this is what I want to do. I want to work in a sustainability job where I feel like I'm doing, I'm working, but I'm doing something very, very good for the planet and for people every day. And when I was running a small nonprofit, I would not have even known to hire a data scientist. So I wouldn't have known what that job description looked like, where to go get a data scientist, what I would do if I got one. So I would imagine there's probably some of you in the room who are in a similar position. So I think it's a great point to think about also how we enable that environment, to think about teaching. And one of the things that we've tried to do is we have a program called Amazon Future Engineers, where we're going into schools and teaching kids about engineering as a career, data science as a career. But we're also doing the same thing in packaging schools, where we're trying to go in and talk to packaging engineers and say, there's a whole career for you here in reinventing sustainable materials in packaging, taking waste out of packaging, addressing how to, as people shop more online, not just with us, but online in general, how things could be packaged differently to ship most economically and most environmentally sound. And I think as we start to talk to people, understanding that the work that probably most of you in this room are doing has these aspects of social and environmental benefit, and that there's a role for people to play in the fields of engineering, science, and data analysis in those organizations is something I think we could all do more to amplify, because we have generations coming up that are very hungry to do this and don't exactly know how this fits in. So I think we're also very open to having those conversations to help people craft that in order to take the leap and to maybe use data as well, with some of the programs that we're doing and the ways that we're trying to get into schools and talk about engineering as a field, and to make it more accessible, and also to make it focused on some of these critical social and environmental issues.
So we talked a lot about collaborations and bring everybody to the table, democratizing access to the tools and the data to bring everybody to the solution space. In an audience like this, where we have so many nonprofits, I would love to hear your perspective from each one of you on what do you think are the main gaps in knowledge and in data in the space of sustainability, where the nonprofits could play a role, and there might be an opportunity for them to work more closely with your groups. I don't know what's
That's a big question. I think I would approach this from the perspective of the art of the possible. I think that we have a lot of data. We don't yet know how to really get robust insights out of much of this data. And this is where the analytical, scientific, and engineering communities come in. So if I look at the work I did prior to this with the Office for National Statistics in the UK, statisticians have been doing things in the same way for many, many years. So getting people to think differently and look for the art of the possible with the data, I think, is the biggest gap. So the gap is not actually in the data, and it's not actually in the tools, although there's more work to be done in the industry around privacy preserving techniques, about computing on encrypted data at scale, all the big interesting tech stuff which we won't focus on here. But there's an evolution in tools which is currently way ahead of the thinking that we have across even those institutions who you think would be thinking very forwardly about data. So for me, the gap is getting people to be curious and making sure that they're not scared to try things. We've talked a lot over the last 2 days about innovation and about the ability to fail. Now, if you're going to start doing some work with data, I would say that it's probably easier than you think to start. I would say that these tools and this support is becoming more readily available to you. And so the gap, I think, is in taking that leap of faith to try something. You know, it may not work, but you will learn from that. And I think a lot of the workshops that we've had and a lot of the other presentations have really focused on this. So I would say, yes, we lack skills, yes, we lack capability, but what we need to do is to just get going and remember that, you know, we do not have to compete with one another. This is what I love about my role now in comparison with when I was in business in high tech. You know, if we'd been sitting here and we were competitors, or we met at some sort of conference, we didn't talk about our work because we were busy trying to do something to launch it to market. I love this community because we are all pulling in the same direction, and we really should share.
Thank you. Kara, do you have any thoughts specifically how NGOs might engage with Amazon and meet some of the needs that we have in the space of sustainability?
Yeah, I think at this point, we have some, I can think of the biggest gaps that we have right now when we think about spaces like sustainable materials that I was just talking about in terms of packaging, around biofuels, acceleration to scale. So if any of you are working on those things, please let me know. But I think in general, I guess for me, and again, it's just informed by the places I've been in, what I've experienced is when I was in the NGO world, there was a huge push to collaborate. It was always like, you should be collaborating. There was constant collaborations. We were in constant roundtables of collaboration. And I think I would say only, like, collaboration is fantastic, and we want collaboration at Amazon, but there's a kind of a insane amount of collaboration and convening going on. And I think to your point of action, we definitely want to partner with groups that are interested in less, at this point, especially with the urgency of some of the issues that we're facing, coming to the table and saying, here's a project we have that's ready. We're not sure it's going to work out. It does not have to be perfect. It does not have to have a million partners or consensus around it, but it's ready to try something new and go to scale with it and see if it works. We are a great testing environment for that, and so if there are things that you want to try, whether it's a social program, we just launched a women's empowerment program in our supply chain. And we are testing and trialing all over the world with some NGO partners to see what we can do for women who work in our supply chain to improve their, financial literacy and general and reproductive health information that they receive, and their ability to operate in an empowered way in those jobs. We are willing to experiment on a number of different things around that and how we scale that very fast. We're willing to experiment with new battery technologies and new clean tech technologies. So we're looking for kind of, I think, action-ready, to your point, projects and things that can go, and they don't have to be, a big collaboration. They don't have to be a lot of partners. They don't have to be, fully ready. They just have to be able to be kind of implementation ready. And so I think that's where, for us, maybe finding partners that can move quickly like that and can, help to see if there's something, because we're ready to accelerate and scale things that are going to work against some of these critical issues.
Great. So it seems like there's a consistent message from both sides. Like we need more immediate action and less careful approach, just given that the problems we are dealing with are so pressing. Great. So we have about 5 minutes left in this session. So unless there's anything specific that you would like to share with the audience, I would open for Q&A if there's anybody interested in. I cannot see anything out there, so somebody's going to have to help identify if somebody's interested.
There's a lady here.
There's one here.
Okay, so if
think a mic
somebody
is
could
coming.
bring the microphone, that would be great.
Hi. You guys talked about innovation and the importance of innovation, and I think most of us being nonprofits are dealing with resource constraints, which can both drive innovation and make it difficult, particularly depending on who your funders are. I think in our space, in the veteran space, the more mature grantors are demanding that kind of data. Any guidance on, we're working with AWS, we host on AWS, and so they're encouraging us to be very innovative, but there is kind of a little bit of a divide there, particularly as a nonprofit. Any kind of guidance around that?
Do you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, it is a buzzword, right? Everybody wants to see innovation. And I can completely appreciate the resource constraints. I will tell you, when I got to Amazon, one of our leadership principles is frugality. And everyone's like, we're so very, very frugal company, very frugal. And I walked in from the nonprofit sector, and I was like, you guys have a whole closet full of free pens. Like, that's incredible. Like, free Post-its and free pens. Like, this place is resource rich. Like, I thought it was, and we continue to have a lot of resources at Amazon, but people cannot appreciate the resource constraints unless you've lived them in the nonprofit world. And that in itself, drives a lot of innovation, right? It drives a lot of laser focus on the issues that you have to tackle first, because you don't have the luxury of experimenting across a whole range of things. And so I sit on a couple boards, and one of the things I also use to counsel funders on is, listen to those partners, because they are laser focused. They know what's important. That's what they're working on, and fund the things that they need, right? So I think trying to also think about when you're thinking, I don't know your specific challenge, but when you're trying to grow a program, I think looking at that and talking to whether it's your funding community or your board or your partners, your stakeholders, and using that as to say, like, we have no choice with the constraints that we operate under to be that laser focused. And so here's our set of priorities for our organization that we need to meet. And they may not be the ones that funders want to fund, but if you fund those, that will unlock this kind of growth, and that will unlock this kind of a program, and that may unlock this kind of a partnership that we can't quite get to yet. I think sometimes the ability to set that vision in kind of a staged way to say, I know you think that what we're doing right now might be constrained, but the reason we're focused here, because we know what we're doing, is so that we can grow and scale. And we've done this again in our corporate environment. Sometimes we'll do something, people say, well, we need to do this everywhere in the world. It's like, okay, but we need to start here, and I know we need to start in this particular location or country, because we're going to learn a tremendous amount, and it's going to allow us then to create the right kinds of partnerships, not the wrong ones that we'll spend a lot of times on doing. So I don't know if that helps, but I think sometimes just even leaning into the fact that you've had to focus and you know what that focus area is, and that then will help you to grow, can be a really strong, strong message.
So I agree with that. I think, you can start small. I mean, actually, unless you're working for a very innovative private sector company where you just have to innovate all the time because you're always running to catch up and you're at the mercy of the market and your boss is watching the share price, et cetera, then there is no option if you're in that sort of environment. Actually, it's not just not-for-profits. I mean, I've spent quite a lot of time working for government as well, and I now obviously interact with a lot of people from governments internationally. Governments are generally poorly funded. They're particularly poorly funded when it comes to statistics and data science, etc. So I think you have to be really willing to start small. And the key thing, I agree with Cara, is demonstrate the benefits. So if you do one small thing, so there are many organisations that have got this. You've got business as usual. I mean, I'll go back to my experience at the ONS. You can't stop producing statistics. You just can't stop. The banks are dependent on them, businesses are dependent on them, and you have to try and find a way to just take a small amount of resource and have it do a little bit of experimentation and then slowly feed that into the system. And it takes time. It really takes time. But you know, if you're a small NGO, I mean, I don't know how many, maybe you've got 5 people. I mean, my current team is actually only 5 people. And they're 5 people because I put those 5 people out of a much bigger team into a separate environment, and I just let them play with technology. This is how we discovered what was available from Amazon and the other partners that we're working with. This is how we've managed to go out and look at what other people are doing with different types of analysis of different types of data. So you just have to start small. If you've got maybe a few people, can you not have one afternoon a week, just one workshop a week? You know, just do a little bit, and then you'll find that you'll find solutions which will give you benefits, and then you can tip that balance, because what you find is that through the small innovation, you can feed that into the business as usual, and then the business as usual becomes more efficient, and then you get onto the right path forward.
Great, thank you. I'm afraid we are out of time. So if you have any other questions, please come and see our speakers after, and I'm sure they will be very happy to answer your questions. I want to thank Kara and Heather for being on stage. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge and your experience. And I want to thank all of you for taking the time to be here with us today and listening to us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Anna.
Thank you so much to our speakers.